everyone, and welcome to another Camera Jabber video. Today I'm speaking to Mark McNeill, who is an astrophotographer. Hi Mark, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? Okay?
Yeah, very well. Thank you very much.
Good stuff.
So have you been able to do any astrophotography recently?
I've been able to do a lot in the back garden, to be fair. We've had really clear skies. It's unusual. We've had, in the lockdown, we've had probably 6 weeks of the best weather for astrophotography. There's clear skies, and I think probably people are itching to get out to capture the moon and capture all sorts of galaxies. But no, in the garden, I've managed to capture all different phases of the moon, really, to be fair. Star trails, star links, which are the satellites going over the house. So even from the back garden, I've been able to capture lots of different things, really.
Oh, so that's great news for people in lockdown. Everybody could have a go at some astrophotography from their garden. Although, presumably, it's quite important about street lighting and how much street lighting is around.
I think the street lighting at the moment, I think what it is the new type of lights. They seem to be bright, but they're not as light polluting, the neon ones, I think. So if you can get in your back garden, what I do is I've got in between the houses, if you can try and shelter yourself or get the back garden, or try and just not be shooting directly into the light. I think they're not too bad, to be fair. I think you do get the lens flares if you get anywhere near them, but if you can position yourself realistically where you can't see them with a direct eye, they're there, but as long as you can't see them, I think you can get quite a good shot, to be fair. You really, yeah. They're not too bad. And also as well, pointing the camera straight up, you miss a lot of the light there, to be honest. The back gardens are normally darker than the front. Most street lights are at the front of the house, so.
Yes, that's true. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I guess, you turn the lights off in your house or wait for, we've got a PIR light just outside the back door, so I'd wait until that went off.
Yeah, well, behind our house, which I think I've done a vlog about it just recently, is that there's a caravan estate, a caravan park, what they call, not residential, but like a holiday homes. So people come to visit, and at the moment, he has a light on, and it goes off. So as soon as people walk down, this big light comes off, and it kind of ruins the view, and it's just under Venus at the moment. So but with the last 6 weeks, there's no one visited, so those lights are all off. So it's been really good to get the night sky and different perspective from my house, which is really good, really cool, to be fair.
So if it wasn't lockdown, where would you say are the ideal locations for astrophotography?
I would say really, if you can get anywhere within, I mean, depending on where you live, you want to be as far away from a city as possible. I mean, where we live in Lancashire, you've got Forest of Bowland, and you've got Beaconfell, or anywhere, I would say at least 3 or 4 miles away from built-up areas, if you can, if it's possible. The Lake District, obviously, Anglesey is probably one of the best places, but Anglesey on the south coast of Wales as well, and Pembrokeshire, that's really good. Just places away from the lights, really, to be honest. I think Anglesey is one of the darkest places I've been into in UK.
And what about equipment choice?
I think anything even for beginners, I think as long as you got a sturdy tripod, I think you don't have to spend mass amounts. You can go onto eBay and find a second-hand camera. Old lenses are quite good because they have a wider aperture, so you don't need to spend a fortune. Even kit lenses, bridge cameras. Lots of people are taking moon shots with the Nikon, don't quote me, Nikon P900, I think it is, which is got a reach of about 3,000 mil. That's quite good. There's all sorts, really. You don't need to have all the latest equipment. Beginners to even pros who specialise in different subjects can try in the garden. So if you're a wildlife photographer, you can try astrophotography. You can try different things, really. You don't need to have the best equipment, really.
And what would you say is your go-to lens?
I've got a 20, at the moment I'm using a Nikon 24 mil 1.8. That's my go-to one at the moment. 24-70, but I quite like the prime lenses. I think I've got to move around a little bit more rather than it gets you to walk about. Even in the garden, you can just move about. It makes it a little bit more.
Yeah. And obviously it's always got to be on a nice solid tripod.
Yes, a nice solid tripod, or if people can't afford a tripod, I haven't got one, try a beanbag. Even a couple of bricks, believe it or not, a couple of bricks or a plant pot, you can rest it in a plant pot. Anything. If you want to try it, you've got a beautiful camera, but you want to try it, or you're just a beginner. Anything that doesn't move really, the window ledge or tiles or anything in the garden that just doesn't, you press a shutter release cable or a timer, which is built into the camera, gives it a couple of seconds to stop, and that would probably give it enough time to get a reasonable shot, or at least get you started to see some results really.
Great. And of course, you could make a beanbag just by tipping some lentils or something into an old sock and tying that, and then you've got
or a bag of sugar, even a bag of sugar or a bag of flour would do. Smaller cameras now, not a professional camera, but what people have is maybe a Nikon mirrorless or a Sony A6000. Those sort of cameras, those will be ideal. And nowadays off Amazon you can buy a simple tripod for under £10 that would work for those. Just a tiny one would be all right. You don't have to spend fortunes. I think Three Legged Thing do a little one called, don't quote me, I think it's not, is it Iggy? The little tiny tripod?
There's Iggy, and then there's the docks, which is like
the docks,
a really solid one that can go on the bottom.
I've got the docks, and a monopod leg, which is quite good. I use that one as well. But for people who just want to use their even mobile phones now, so with a little mini tripod on your mobile phone, you can, most cameras, like this is a Huawei, it's got night photography, or different things that they can use to take photos of the stars.
Those Huawei night modes are amazing. Yes,
and also on if you go onto that and you press more, there's another button which says Star Trails, which is basically the camera takes a series of just a long exposure, and it keeps the subject. So if you just take a picture of a tree or your house, the house won't move, but the stars. I got the satellites the other night, the Starlinks, and there was must be 40 going past, and the image was just as really, really good, really, for social media, just to post straight away, and the quality is really good as well. So, and it's a lot easier to process for people. It's just simple, look at it and post it onto social media.
And thinking about cameras where you do have some control, what would you recommend as the go-to camera settings?
Well, I would say to people, if they can do, I'm not too sure if bridge cameras are well, but first thing I would do is turn everything onto manual settings. So like I mentioned before, turn your focusing onto manual, try and get the infinity point, which is on the top. Also as well, most cameras now, Z6, most Nikon cameras have, I think Sony's as well, they have noise reduction. So if you can try and find that on your settings, turn that off, because it thinks stars are noise. So when you have noise reduction, it reduces all the stars, it gets rid of a lot of them, so you'll only see the bright ones. Try and do that. Try and shoot in RAW if you can. That's always a good tip as well. Try and keep your ISO as low as possible. Sometimes if you go to a really dark place, so if you're doing cityscapes or back garden photography, you don't need to go to 3200. You could take a picture with ISO 1600, which with a, that will make it a lot easier as well, because once you go past 3200 or 64,000, the noise will get a little bit more on the basic cameras. But no, with your standard cameras, you can use, say, ISO 1600, which would be quite nice to get some stars. You get the plow. You can even get galaxies with that low ISO as well. So
you turn off both modes of noise reduction, then, not high ISO and.
Yeah, but also if you go to your noise reduction on the back of the camera and turn that off, it's a lot better then. And also as well, if you're taking a photo, so if you took a photo for 30 seconds and you wanted to capture something, and then you wanted to take another 30 seconds, the camera would process that image for 30 seconds. So if you're doing a long exposure, you would if you're doing a star trail, you would have to wait 30 seconds, have a gap for 30 seconds, then take another 30. So if you turn all that off when you did a star trail, you'd be able to do that. There'd be lots of little gaps in your star trail. So
is that how you tend to shoot, in sort of 30-second bursts?
Yeah, if you're doing a star trail, yes. Yeah, so when you think about shutter speed, 500 divided by your focal length. So if I was shooting at 200mm, I think it's roughly between 1 and 2 seconds would be your exposure time. Any longer than that the stars would start to blur or would start to move. So the longer the focal distance, the shorter the shutter speed would be.
Okay, that's a really useful rule of thumb, isn't it?
Yeah, really. So average, if you have a wide lens, which I stick to, the 24 mil, it's normally, I would say, about 20 seconds is long enough before the stars are pinpoint sharp, really.
So once you've decided on your composition, and so therefore the length of the lens that you're going to use, that kind of dictates, and then the type of image you want, and that dictates the shutter speed, which
Yes.
in turn dictate the sensitivity and the aperture.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So if you're using it, ideally, if possible, I would say to anybody, when they look on eBay or they look for a lens, if they can get a lens that's got a faster aperture than 2.8, really, that helps a lot. If you get a 1.4 lens, then your shutter speed or your ISO is drastically reduced. So if you're shooting with a 1.4 lens, you might only have to use an ISO of 600, which straight away would reduce your noise reduction, and your shutter speed can be 10 seconds, which would let more light in to capture more stars.
Okay. And what about white balance? What do you usually set for the white balance?
I go to, on my Z7, I go to K, and I set it to roughly about 3,000, anywhere between 3,700 and 4,500. I do it, but you can do auto white balance, and like everybody does, and adjust them in Lightroom, but it's easy to set it to K. And sometimes people like blue images, some people like them. It depends on the light pollution, really, or what you can warm it up, or you can cool it down.
Yeah.
I prefer it to be roughly in between 3,500 and 4,700, in between roughly about, and just trial and error, really, till it's all what colours you think that the night sky look, really. Some people like it really cool, some people like it warm, so it's more of an orangey glow. So it depends what your personal preference is, really. And if you're making images black and white, it's kind of not too.
Yeah, and I guess if you're shooting RAW as well, you've got more scope to adjust than you would if you shot JPEGs.
Yes, yeah. I think as well as, like I say, if you're in a dark place, when you go to a really dark place, your shutter speed will have to be longer, and that's why you get the benefit from faster lenses, really. So if you go to the Sycamore Gap, for instance, you would need to shoot, let's say, ISO 3200, and you would need to shoot with a faster lens, because I've got the f4 lens, which even that as well, 2470, you need to do longer shutter speeds, and you need to boost the ISO a little, just to let that little bit more light in. So ideally, that's what I'm saying. If someone's going to buy a lens, you try and buy one faster than f4. They do work well. You can take cityscapes, but to get more stars and more detail, the faster the lens, the better the image quality comes out, really.
Now, you've already mentioned that you would use manual focus. Have you got any tips for people who are trying to focus manually in the dark?
Yes, basically, so if you have your lens, and during the day is a good tip. I learned to do it during the day. So if you were to focus on a street lamp, or say a telegraph pole, say 200 or 300 meters away, focus during the day if you possibly can. Use a tripod, use the live view. What I would do is use the live view and zoom in on the back of the camera, and just do those final tweaks, so you're getting something 200 or 300 meters away in focus. And then what you can do then is slightly adjust it, either leave a mark on it, or that's the kind of best way. Or even at night time, if you're struggling to do it at night time, or if you knock your focus or the ring goes, turn to a street light if you can in the distance. Or I think one of the brighter stars is Sirius, or Venus is out at the moment. So on new cameras, the focus peaking comes up blue straight away. So that can help. You can just twist the camera with tiny adjustments to get them focused. So try and find something like a lamppost or something in the distance.
Yeah.
And then switch the camera to back to manual.
I guess if you go with somebody, you can always get them to walk off somewhere with a torch and.
Yes, that's a really good point. Or you can simply, if you're on your own, throw the torch. Throw the torch, but then probably trying to get the torch at night time. But a good tip as well is, if you once you get to a place, turn all your lights off for a good 10 minutes, or sit in the car and just kind of let your eyes get used to the dark, and you'll be surprised just how much you can actually see.
Yes, that does make a big difference, actually.
It does, really, to be fair. And if you get your phone out, for instance, and try and look at settings, or look at an app, that can set you back a few 10 or 15 minutes again. So always turn it to red as well, and always have your, if you have a head torch, turn it to red. That makes it a lot easier to see
Right.
and stuff. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you can still see things, but it doesn't hurt your eyes as much, or doesn't seem to ruin photos.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. So have you got some images we could take a look at, please?
Yes, I can just share one now for you. This is me stood under the tree at the Sycamore Gap on Hadrian's Wall, Northumberland. This was an image that was in the astrophotography year 2018. It was highly commended. Brian Cox retweeted it a few times. You can just about see the Andromeda galaxy there, if I'm not too sure if you can see that with a mouse. But
Yeah.
this is the Milky Way, and this was taken in December, just after Christmas. I think it was the 28th of December, and it was about -5, and it was absolutely freezing, but we stopped there all night.
Yeah.
Doing time lapses, and it was really enjoyable, to be fair.
Beautiful. Was it a windy evening, or was it?
No, it was really cold. It was frozen. You can just
Mm.
about see at the bottom here. There's a bit of snow poking through, and the tripod at the time, the Winston, was set up here, and basically I was doing a time lapse, and I was running in different poses. And the image at first was colour, but I thought I'd just try it black and white to be a bit different. I've not seen many images that are black and white, really, astrophotography images at the time. A couple of years ago. Now there's a few, but not very many. I think we all try and capture the colours of the sky. So all this is here is all the Milky Way, and there's lots of different colours and air glint, some bits of green and some bits of, there's lots of light pollution. So from Sycamore Gap, you'll be looking north towards Scotland way, I would say. Gretna Greenish way, I think. I'm not too sure. But that's the light pollution you would have seen. So that's the first image.
Out. Yeah. And just before you move on, just to say that I think having you in the frame, obviously we've got the tree, but I think you really add a great sense of scale there.
Yeah, I think it's the tree itself is that was the first time I went to the Sycamore Gap to take this picture. And when you're there at night time, it's you can see it sticks out straight away, and you're in kind of like a valley in the gap as such, and the tree to be stood alongside it was magical, to be fair. And there's lots of I think there's lots of history there. I think it was it's quite spooky as well, to be honest, but I think most places are at night time when you're on your own.
I think so. Yeah. And walking back down trying to find your tripod.
Yeah, well, it was just, you could hear it clicking away. You could hear it clicking away, to be fair, and there's like a little green light flashing away.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe should have turned that off, but it's a good idea to know where your camera is, to be honest.
Can you remember what the exposure length was for this one?
This was with a Sigma, and it was a Sigma 20mm 1.4.
All right, okay.
And it was the 1.4 art when they first came out, and I think it was a 10-second exposure at ISO 3200, I think it was. So it was only 10 seconds, but I had it at that because I was doing a time lapse, and I did I think I took 300 shots to the same setting. So in the back of the camera, it was going away, flashing away for a good 2 or 3 hours, and I was dancing about and standing underneath it and turning around. I had a torch at one point. Yeah. I've got a picture of me lighting the tree up with a torch, which looks quite funny. Yeah.
Obviously, that's the moon.
Yes, this is a moon from the, I think it's the 6th of May. I think this was last week. So in lockdown from the garden. Wow. This is an image. Yeah, this is an image captured in the back garden. And what I've tried to do there is, this was using the Sigma, sorry, not the Sigma, the Nikon 500mm and the Z7. And basically this was a 1/500th of a second. It was only ISO 100, and it's just a single shot.
Right. I think a lot of people don't realise actually that you do need quite fast shutter speeds.
Yes.
With the moon, because it is surprisingly bright, isn't it?
Yeah. Another good tip, which I learned a couple of years ago, is on your cameras, if you turn it to spot metering, so the tiny spot, when you have that on your camera, if you put that spot onto the moon, it will meter for the moon, because what the camera sees is a lot of black, because the moon is so far away. 90% of the picture is actually black. So when you have it on normal matrix metering, it meters for the whole picture, and it will show you that it's underexposed. So if you turn it onto spot metering, put it onto the moon, then you will be able to get that's when your shutter speed will go up to 1/1000th of a second or 1/800th of a second. And then once you get that right, you'll be able to drop your ISO down really low as well. So that's another little tip, really. That's that helps as well. And what I did with this image is I've tried to, because there's slight color on there. So in Lightroom, when you have the image of the moon, I was using not saturation, but if you go down further, you can choose the colors, which are, you know, the reds, the purples, the oranges. And if you slide the purples and the blues, these are the colors of the minerals that are in the moon that comes out. So it's not just white, but it's the purples and the, you can just target those different areas on the sliders. So if you slide them to the left, it, you know, rather than be just black and white, and that's what it kind of similarly looks like, to be fair.
Yeah, there's fantastic detail.
Yeah, you can. I'm new to the process of editing, so what I say by that is that lots of people have different ways of processing. So they stack, you know, 10 or 20 images together to reduce noise. That's something that I've been trying to learn in the lockdown myself. But just looking at it, I think sometimes if you get the right conditions, one image is usually just as good as stacking 10 or 20. You do get a little bit more detail, I would say, but when you post images to social media or you post them and share them with your friends, I've found that when I've stacked the 10 images or 20, that when I've posted them onto Facebook or social media, that all that hard work of stacking kind of disappears.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless you go and put it on Flickr or 500px or a independent site for someone to come and look at. All that hard effort of processing seemed to be wasted on the likes of Twitter and such like. So, and I also want it to try and be like what I see with our eyes, not necessarily a really high definition image. Try and keep them as real as possible.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, fantastic. I love the fact that you got that in your back garden as well.
I know I've got a few, to be fair. I've got the stages of the actual moon changing from a tiny crescent all the way up to the full moon. So it's been really enjoyable trying to. The problem I've got, my garden faces south, I think, so the moon rises over all the houses, which unfortunately I can't get it rising up. So I've got to wait till it's kind of at about 9 o'clock in the clock phases, if you will. So I've got to try and either go in the front garden or just try and dancing around in the alleyway. But basically, mainly in the back garden, that's where I can get the best shots, really. And by that time, it's gone really dark, so it's better, really.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting trying to take pictures during the day. So you can see the moon during the day, and you can use different apertures, so f11 or something, and try and get all the details of the moon. But usually,
not many people think of doing that, photographing the moon during the day.
It's quite good, to be honest. Yeah, it's good. It's quite good, to be fair. And you just have a faster shutter speed, really low ISO, so ISO 64, and you can actually get it. So it's just, if you use many apps, Photo Pills, the photographer's Ephemeris or Stellarium, it tells you where it is. It just takes a bit of time to find it, because if the moon's out, if the sun's out, sorry, it can kind of be too bright, but you can see it. And as the sun sets, I would say twilight or the blue hour, just as the sun's setting or it disappears, it's kind of the best time to take the photos. I think when it goes really dark, I think as well, if you take a photo, if I share an image with you in a second, this was an image taken it's called the belt of Venus. So when the sun sets on one side, Earth's shadow is on the other side. And if the moon comes up there, it gives it beautiful purpley colour. So the opposite side to a sunset, you always get this band of purple. which is actually the Earth's shadow. It's called the belt of Venus.
Right.
You can get the moon. It gives you a bit more contrast. So the moon's really bright, and then the colours as well. And also, it's normally near the horizon, or it's near something that gives you a bit more scale, if that makes sense. There we go. So this is a moon, and if I just move my little arrow at the bottom, this here is the belt of Venus, and that's the full moon rising through that. So,
right.
And realistically, this is just above the horizon. So the purple part is the Earth's shadow. We can see at the top where it's getting a little bit more grey. That's the actual Earth's shadow.
Yeah.
And this purple will come up as the moon's as the sun sets.
Mm-hmm.
The belt of Venus on the opposite side of where the sun is
mm-hmm.
where the beautiful colours come.
Right. So yeah, did you say that the timing to get the moon in there?
Yes, it's normally when moon rises. If you can get the moon rise, say half an hour after sunset, that's your perfect time really, or an hour after the sunset. So when the sun sets and the moon rises, that's the best time really, because the moon on the horizon is a beautiful orange colour. It's only when it gets past our horizon or our atmosphere is it starts to change colour from red to to a beautiful white colour really, to be honest.
I love the colours of that. What focal length lens would you have used for that?
That was at 500mm. I tried to do that's in portrait orientation on a 500mm. So the 500mm is a wonderful lens, but it's the field of view is very narrow, so you can't get landscapes, or you can't, unless the moon is right next to the ground. It's very difficult to do a to get some scaling or something, or a lamppost in. You've got it's but I think it looks really nice with the colour at the bottom, to be fair.
Yeah, it does. And I think because of the graduation in the colour, you do get a sense of it rising.
Yeah, if you watch tonight when the sun sets, if it's clear, so wherever the sun sets, if you look the opposite direction to that, you will get this beautiful colour. And in the morning when you go out, you will get this beautiful band of purple on the opposite side of the sun.
Right.
The sunrise, so it's sunrise and sunset really. This shot, it simply was uploaded to Lightroom, cropped, and there was just a couple of dust spots. That's kind of how I try and make the shots as kind of natural as possible really. I don't really over process it, images. I try not to anyway. I try and very rarely use Photoshop. I just use Photoshop to put the borders on basically. So this was taken with a 500mm, and basically this is a 4K video on the Z7, but what I did was I've sped it up, speeded it up. But this is what you can see. This is the horizon. So this is from my house or down the bottom of the road, and this is a place called Southport, and you can just see the moon and the colour of the moon. This is unedited. This is what colour we would see the moon rise. And so as you can see, this cloud at the bottom there, these are all the street lights over Southport. And as you can see, that's what colour it is. And as it comes through the atmosphere, it starts to go slightly green on the top. It's just when it goes above, and it's coming through the Earth's atmosphere at the moment. But that's how big it looks with scale. So these are all street lights. And if you were to have a subject in the middle there, like a tower or something, or even a plane going past, it would, the moon, you don't realise just how big it is until you see it come up against the landscape, if you will. I think a bird's flown past there. I'm not too sure.
That's great.
I think there's a little bird just going past.
Oh yeah. Yes.
And when it goes up, speed it up. As you can see, when it goes past and out the atmosphere, it starts to turn white.
Yeah.
There we go. So this picture is a moon. It's a crescent moon, which is, again, you can just about see at the bottom of this picture. This is a really unedited picture. It's slightly purple at the bottom. It's a lot grayer tinge, but this is a moon, a new moon, and you can just see this slither of a crescent. and that's the sun hitting the side of it. So it's very difficult to try and capture that,
Yeah.
because you kind of don't know where it is until the sun has just set. So the apps can tell you 10 minutes earlier the sky was so bright you couldn't see it. So it's like a guessing game, really. You kind of have an inkling where it is, but trying to take a picture, you have to wait. And then obviously it goes dark, and then the moon would set then. So that I got that last week, I think, or the first week. I think last week or the week before, I can't remember now. But so that's a process of starting from a slight crescent all the way up to the full moon. And I think we've had 1 or 2 days where it was really cloudy, where I didn't manage to capture a stage of the moon.
That's a great shot, though, isn't it? I know what you mean about when it's bright, because it's just a slither, you wouldn't see it. But
No, you wouldn't.
the
And
sun's
you
gone
have to,
down.
yeah, you have to wait till the sun's gone down. And by that time, this last time, the moon was kind of following the sun, if you will. So what happened was, when the sun set, the moon was right behind it. So you had a little tiny window that you could get the picture before it disappeared itself. So, and also as well, if the crescent moon like this is in the sky at night time, it's really good because that doesn't let off too much light. So when this moon's like this, I think Venus was up in the air, but you can also capture near stars to it, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
when the moon's so bright and you see these images with stars, it's nearly impossible to take an image with the full moon and have any stars around it. So those images would always be either 2 images put together. But so with this crescent moon, you can actually pick up stars near to it, or Venus near to it. At the moment, I've got an old vintage Nikon lens. It's a 400mm, I'm not too sure. It's an AI model, I think, and it attaches to the FTZ adapter. And I think it was £30 on eBay.
Wow.
And you can get some really good images with it. It's 400mm. So you don't need to spend fortunes. They do help if you have got the top range lenses, but you don't necessarily have to. So anybody starting out who wants to learn photography could get away with using the basic equipment, especially with moonshot.
Yeah.
You know, and also now people can buy telescopes that mobile phones attached to, which gets nice pictures of the moon. There's lots of things you can do in the garden. I think we've got a little while yet. We've got another 3 or 4 weeks, I think, in the garden. So there's lots more things people can do and learn. There's lots of things. Venus is shining bright every night. People think it's a star, it's a planet. The other way, you've got all sorts of different stars. There's lots of apps that are interactive that children and families can learn from. Stellarium's really good. Even Photo Pills is a really good app. The photographer's ephemeris is really good for planning things, when you can line the tower up with the sun and moon setting, or it's really good how you can plan things before you go out, and you can go put the map down where you can only go and stand in the location on your computer and then go and drive to it, take the shot, and you've planned it before you've got to the location. Basically, there's lots of good apps out that are really, really accurate as well. So
just make life that little bit easier.
Pardon? Yeah.
Well, Mark, thank you very much. It's been really great talking with you, and thank you for sharing those images. They're really fantastic.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's been really good. Really enjoyed it.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.